Welcome to All Things Marketing Podcast, the podcast that talks all things marketing for both franchise and multi-location marketing leaders. ATM is brought to you by PureDriven. We'll show you how to turn your brand into a money-making machine. Here's your host, Steve Rockwood.
Hello and welcome to ATM. My name is Steve Rockwood and I am the marketing manager at PureDriven. Today is Factoid Friday, our very first one. Every day we tweet out a fact or a stat that we find interesting, and I am going to go through this week's factoids and dive more into what they mean for franchisors, franchisees, and business in general. So let's get started. Before we jump into the first factoid, I would like to introduce my guest. My guest's name is Factoid Bot. Factoid Bot, how are you doing today?
Hello, Steve. I am Factoid Bot. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, that didn't answer my question, sir, or robot, but I am glad to have you here, and hello to you as well. Should we get started?
I have a joke for you. Would you like to hear it?
I guess I could go for a joke before we get started here. Let's hear it.
How do you stop a robot from destroying the world?
All right, a little bit of a dark note to start. I like it. Do you just unplug it?
You can't. Ha ha.
All right, Factoid Bot, a little scary. Can we just start the podcast maybe and get to the point here? We have 5 factoids to get through, and I think we should just start with number 1. How's that sound?
Factoid number 1. The average person consumes 11.4 pieces of content before making a purchasing decision.
All right, that's more like it. Thank you, Factoid Bot. That's why I knew you'd be a great guest today. So what this means for you is you need information on your products to be available at the click of a button. You need to share across social media, your website, and your advertising. Retargeting people who have seen your product once would be a great way to keep them interested in your product. If someone needs to consume 11.4 pieces of content before making a purchasing decision, you're going to want to make sure that all the content you have is in a place that they can find easily. Let's go to factoid number 2.
Factoid number 2. 75% of consumers expect a consistent experience wherever they engage.
Well, this one's pretty self-explanatory, but I think it is important to note. And the big takeaway here is keep your social media platforms consistent. This means branding. If you're not exactly sure what branding is, check out our podcast from a few days ago. We talked in depth about branding and how to do it for a franchise. So definitely worth checking out. This also means responding to customers' questions, comments, and concerns. If a platform doesn't make sense for your business, don't use it. A lot of people try and get their business on every single platform, and it's just not necessary. You might want to save the username and create an account just so that you have your business name on there in case one day you do want to use it. But you don't necessarily have to be active on there because you don't want people to be messaging you and trying to engage on a platform that you don't check. So only use platforms that make sense and that you can upkeep. You want to be able to handle all the comments, questions, and concerns that you get. Let's move on to the next factoid.
Factoid number 3. The average length of a top 10 page has 2,000 words.
This is pretty self-explanatory as well. It just means that there is a lot of SEO going on. It means that you need to focus on the words on your pages, how you're using them, and if they relate to your target audience. SEO is super important in this day and age, especially because it's one of the few organic ways to get people to your website. So make sure that your SEO is good. Top 10 page has 2,000 words. This isn't a hard and fast rule to follow, but you can check your page and see how many words you're at. And maybe if you have a more successful page, compare that to one that isn't doing so well in the SEO rankings, and maybe see if the word count plays a major factor.
Factoid number 4. Video is shared 1,200% more than both links and text combined.
This is also quite self-explanatory. Make videos. Videos are great for brands to get their message out there in a way that text and images just can't do. If a picture speaks 1,000 words, imagine how many a video can speak. You can use videos to explain a product, showcase how a product helps with everyday life, highlight your staff members, advertise your new deals, show your company's core values. The options are endless. Make sure to listen to some of our recent podcasts about company core values because you can definitely use those in these videos. Let's go to our final factoid of the day. Take it away, Factoid Bot.
Factoid number 5. Video will represent 80% of all internet traffic by 2019.
Well, that's a pretty good follow-up to that last factoid. This means that video is super important. If I didn't already make that clear, from the last factoid, video is super important. 80% of the internet will be going exclusively to video. If you're not showing up, you are in trouble. So make sure, if you take away one thing from this episode today, it is focus on your videos and focus on your strategy involving videos. If you don't have a content strategy with the videos involved for 2019, you should definitely look into doing that. Well, that's all the time we have for you today, folks. Thank you for joining me, Factoid Bot.
Thank you for having me, Steve. See you next week.
We will see you next week, and it sounds like the world's not ending if he says he's going to be seeing us next week, so that is always good. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today on Factoid Friday, and we will see you here next week, right here at ATM.
You just listened to All Things Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch every new episode every day. Want to be a guest on the show? Sign up at puredriven.com/guest. See you tomorrow here at the ATM.